Right, we will move into motion 16. Oh, can we switch the mic on? Try again.
Okay. Hello, yeah, brilliant. So it would be me following that, wouldn't it? There we go. Okay, non-graduate teacher apprenticeship route. I am Emily Jones, I am on the National Executive and we're proposing this for the Professional Committee, but I'm also Staffordshire branch. My daughter is 14. She is highly dyslexic and has dyscalculia. She is amazing, a model pupil, a school prefect, advocate, an example of true grit and determination. I wouldn't expect anything else. I am so proud of her. She battles every day with anxiety, difficulty in accessing learning, independence and huge barriers to her lessons. Yet she battles on. She speaks out and she shines. Resource and support for the SEND needs she has are limited. No surprise there. Her school do an amazing job with what they have, and I can't thank them enough. Because of her needs in most core classes, she is in bottom set, where all children struggle and many are simply turned off by learning. As a result, high levels of disruption and low levels of progress. Again, nothing unusual there. She's year 10. From what I know from talking to colleagues, a troubled year group nationally for social anxiety, disruptive behaviours and an increase in need as a result of COVID loss. Now imagine, hypothetically, a non-graduate apprentice teacher working with these pupils. A minimum of 2 GCSEs in maths and English, that's all. No required specialist knowledge, no required understanding of pedagogy, psychology, differentiation, SEND needs and the true grit required to work with such pupils. A 60% teaching commitment and a 40% study. Low apprentice pay for the 3 or 4 years of their apprenticeship. And school commitment to mentor and train the individuals, with all the abundance of spare money that we have in schools, of course. Replicate this in special school settings where the need is even higher, in primary where a true understanding of the foundations of learning is vital. I could go on. National Executive listened and questioned the DFE on your behalf, asking deep questions and holding them to account for the proposals. Whilst this route may be an option for many excellent colleagues with a passion for education and years of experience as an unqualified member of staff, there are far too many holes in this poorly thought-out solution to our recruitment crisis. Will this reduce workload for schools? Absolutely not. Will this increase our workforce solving all of our recruitment issues? I very much doubt it. Will this poorly paid route to teaching be attractive when other professions pay so much more? Will these unqualified apprentices complete their route, complete their journey and stay in the profession long term? I am sure based on what you've heard and what you know, you can predict the answer yourself. I remain proud of my daughter. She will be a success because of her incredible, qualified teachers who understand her, know her and encourage her, and because she is resilient. School is already a difficult place for our future generations to grow. Let's not add to this complex mess, trying to resolve our recruitment crisis. I move.
Thank you. This mic on this side, please.
Hello, I'm Tony Dolan. I'm the Barnsley Branch Secretary and I am on the Secondary Council, and I'm going to argue in favour of this, supporting this motion against apprentice teachers. I've been responsible for teaching and learning for over 9 years, and I've been responsible for the oversight of training of ITTs, NQTs and now ECTs for even longer. And over that time, working with many different educational providers, I have seen the general and continual decline in the standards expected by these institutions and the challenge expected by ICTs to work towards their development. I've also seen the very sad but inevitable lack in new ECTs to develop their own lessons, adapt, identify and close gaps when they've undertaken ITT training in large multi-academy trusts where all lessons are planned centrally. Due to this form of training, our new ECTs struggle to adapt lessons. They struggle to identify and close gaps or even adapt for different abilities. And these, colleagues, are highly qualified graduates. So my question is, how will an apprentice teacher identify these gaps, let alone close them, if they do not have any strong sound subject knowledge specific to their teaching area, whether this is language development at in early years or English literature at post-16? Apprentice teachers will not be able to teach lessons that are built on a strong foundation. They will just be surface level instructors. What this government and future ones needs to do is raise the profile of our profession. Make teaching a respected profession rather than the metaphorical punch bag for everything that goes wrong in society at the moment. What we need to significantly reduce this crisis in teaching is not just significant financial investment in schools and us to recognise the expertise within schools, but invest in time for colleagues. Teachers need time to develop themselves, to create a quality work-life balance, and to maintain their own health and mental fitness so that every child will reach their success in life.
Thank you. And we did have another speaker who'd indicated in advance that they wished to speak. George Samios. Thank you.
I'm George Samios, and I'm from Bath and North East Somerset branch. We do need good, hard-working, passionate, well-trained teachers, but not everybody knows when they first enter the workplace or further education that it's their destiny to be a teacher. When unfulfilled as an architect, in my 30s, I did a PGCE course. I was paid a bursary of £6,000, which more than covered the fees, which I think were £3,000 then. Now it's over £9,000 to do a PGCE, and that is a barrier to many. It's 50,000 plus of debt if you want to do a B.Ed. I'd have loved to have done a B.Ed, but it was too late at that point. Now, we had a branch meeting earlier this week, and one of our members, Joe, experienced head teacher of a special school, said, I've had 3 years' experience now of the postgraduate teacher apprenticeship, and it has been an excellent route for some of my TAs who couldn't afford to enter via normal routes. I now have 5 teachers who completed the training on my team, and they are thriving. I've reviewed the course content, the delivery quality. I feel reassured that the standards are excellent. I appreciate all providers may not be as robust, but without the PGTA, I would have struggled with recruitment. Also, I have one member of staff who's just started the degree route apprenticeship, 4 years, and again, it's a really high standard. I think people have a fear of the apprenticeships, that they're downgrading the profession, but from someone who is actively using them, they have been transformative. Comrades, let's support Joe and not put additional barriers in the way of good people, whatever their circumstances, doing something meaningful and vital with their one wild and precious life. I'm sorry to the signer. I oppose this motion on behalf of the Bath branch.
Thank you. I'm going to go this side first. Thank you.
Mark Warner, West Sussex branch. After 36 years in school, I moved into higher education, and I'm now responsible for a bachelor's degree in education studies, teaching on PGCE programme 2. I don't support this at all. We don't want to dumb down the teaching profession, and there are alternative routes. We take an awful lot of teaching assistants who are delivering lessons and decide they want to be a teacher, so they take out a student loan, they come to us 3 years, get a BA, and then do our PGCE. So there are alternative routes that don't cost the school anything because they take out the student loan to be able to do that, and we maintain the standards. 3 years to get a BA, and then either 1 or 2 years part-time to get your PGCE. Actually, the academic debate and the argument and the training and everything else that they receive puts them in a much better position to meet the needs of the children.
Thank you.
Hi, Jan Hatchell, Suffolk Branch Secretary. Very quickly, I support the idea of finding innovative ways to train our teachers, but I can't believe we should be looking at anything other than making sure that our profession stays the graduate profession that it should be, and our union should be making sure that happens.
Hannah Fortable, Oxford branch. I'm speaking against this motion for a number of reasons. We in Oxfordshire have a huge crisis in terms of retention, in terms of recruitment. We've worked over a long period of time with 2 universities. We're very blessed with the provision that we have, and we recognise that we need to do something radical. And so we see degree apprenticeships as a way of moving forward, not a way of moving backwards. We recognise that a large number of our working population in schools currently are women who cannot access other routes into degrees because actually they would have to give up their job. Work-based degree provision within Oxfordshire has been excellent. The people that I have working for me that have been through a very similar programme but through the university are my strongest practitioners. I am proud of the practitioners they are. I know that those practitioners entering into the apprenticeship schemes, if they are properly supported by universities like Brighton, who are looking at innovative practice, will be just as good as teachers that have come through postgraduate routes. I work predominantly with early years professionals. They have long-standingly had level 5 apprenticeships. They have worked through CUTE to be early years teachers who then after a period of time maybe have gone back and done the conversion degree. But it is expensive, and we're asking people to get into £60,000 worth of debt when there are other options available through the apprenticeship levy. We need to be working with people, not just dismissing it. Thanks.
And I will just take this one more speaker, thank you.
Marika Miles, Hampshire branch. I just want to draw attention away from the additional needs end of the spectrum, which we've rightly focused on, and just think about our most able learners at the end of their journey. It's easy to forget that there are plenty of schools with sixth forms where youngsters are undertaking A-levels and they're going on to further and higher education, including Oxbridge and places with very, very high standards. A teacher who has undertaken this route could go from a minimum 2 GCSEs, 4 years part-time, and end up with the equivalent of a maths degree and a maths PGCE, and the day after they qualify, deployed to teach A-level to children who are going to do maths degrees. Just as an example, we have to be really, really careful about this because we're going to lose that aspect of our profession, the people that can also take our brightest and our best onto really, really challenging further academic futures. This does not equip them to do it.
Thank you, colleagues. Emily, you have the right of reply, should you wish.
I hear everything that everyone's saying, and I'm not disagreeing with the passion of the professionals that are within our schools. What we are against here is the minimum qualifications that are proposed. 2 GCSEs, exactly what Marika's just said. It's the challenge, it's the support, it's what we need for our children, and our children must be at the centre of this. There are far too many holes in this proposal. I think it needs rethinking.
So we move to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. All against? And that is largely carried. Thank you. And moving on to motion 17. Thank you.
Afternoon all, Natalie Hill, Kent Branch Secretary, first time speaking at conference. Very nervous, but you know, we're giving it a good go today. So, colleagues and friends, we're here today at a time when technology is advancing faster than ever, offering enormous potential. However, it also presents profound risks. As school leaders and educators, we are facing a new frontier, one where our reputations, our well-being, and even our safety are vulnerable to attacks that can be launched not just locally, but globally, at the click of a button. This motion recognises the urgent need for action. It addresses the growing threat posed by online social media abuse, and even more alarmingly, the rise of AI-generated deepfake exploitation. Let's be clear, many head teachers, school leaders, including myself, have already been victims of deepfake pornography. Conference, imagine the devastating impact of a completely fabricated, explicit photograph or video appearing online, falsely portraying a trusted professional. The damage to careers, the destroying of trust, and the causing of unimaginable personal trauma. This is not a hypothetical risk, it's happening now. The current legal protections available are woefully behind the technology that enables these attacks. Victims often find themselves trapped, forced to prove their innocence, while trying to manage the emotional and reputational fallout. This is why this motion matters so deeply. Conference, we must demand legislative change. We must ensure that the creation and distribution of non-consensual deepfake material, particularly explicit material, is illegal. We must also push for clear, immediate processes for dealing with all forms of online abuse. Our employers have a duty of care to provide immediate access to legal support, to offer mental health services, and ensure crisis intervention is in place when our members are attacked. But we must go further still. We need partnerships with law enforcement, legal experts, and technology companies to create robust strategies for identifying, reporting, and removing abuse content swiftly. We must build education and prevention into our culture. We need AI awareness programs for staff and students, teaching the ethical and real dangers of real-world consequences of misusing these technologies. Conference, this is more than just defending ourselves against harm. It's about asserting the dignity and rights of every school leader, every teacher, every staff member in this profession. If we allow technology to outpace our protections, we fail those who dedicate their lives to nurturing and educating future generations. But if we act now, boldly and decisively, we can make our schools and our professions safer, stronger and fairer. I urge you to support this motion and stand with every colleague who has been targeted, stand for every future leader and member of the profession who deserves to work without being in fear. Conference, I move.
Afternoon, friends. Katrina Moore, Regional Secretary, Northern Ireland, first time speaking at a conference. The importance of supporting each other has never been more crucial. Natalie has spoken already about the issues with AI and deepfakes from a very personal point of view, which we all know is extremely worrying for all the reasons that she has already stated. I would like to second this motion because I personally have been at the brunt of vile and abusive posts by parents and others, many of whom not even connected with my school. The impact on us as individuals and professionals cannot ever be underestimated. We're doing a job that we love. We're trying to support and help each child and young person that crosses our doors each and every day. We go home in the evenings to our families and try to get on with our lives, protecting ourselves, our families and our friends from such attacks. To be then subjected to a campaign of abuse based on incorrect, false information or conjecture is appalling. I've seen a huge rise in staff abuse in recent years, and notably since the COVID pandemic. We as school leaders are there for our staff and support our staff when they receive this abuse, but sometimes there's no one there for us. A recent issue in my own situation where I was accused of allegedly grooming children because I undertook RSE talks resulted in abhorrent and personally intimidating online campaign. When I went to the police and my local education authority, they said there was nothing they could do. It wasn't a big enough threat.
Sorry, Katrina, can I ask you to...
Yes, I want to just second this emotion, that sounds like a song. I want to commend this motion. I want to say, as Natalie, we need to protect our members, our profession and our future. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anybody standing at the mic, so I'm just going to hand over to Angie as National Executive. Wish to express a view on this.
Conference. National Executive would like to express their particular support for this motion. National Executive recognises that new technology does not always just mean new opportunities to improve our lives and improve our schools. We recognise that artificial intelligence and other digital innovations are a new frontier for us as leaders, as workers and as trade unionists, and that this motion helpfully clarifies our position on that. We all recognise that there is no excuse for abuse, and this motion introduces a new dimension to that essential campaign.
Thank you. And we move to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. All against? That is unanimously carried. Thank you. Motion 18, also on workload and wellbeing.
James Hawkins, Birmingham Branch, Chair of Deputy and Assistant Heads Council, the fastest growing sector of our membership family, but it's not a competition. Thank you, yes. Conference, I stand here today in the presence of greatness, the inspiring, the resilient and the wise. I know this is a safe place for me to speak freely about some of the increasing challenges I face as a leader. I know I could come and sit by any one of you and you would give me time, advice, and build my resilience to be a better leader. I also know how lonely leadership can be. I know how it feels to be awake all night as your mind goes into overdrive about one hasty decision and plays out your entire career before your eyes. I know how it feels when the latest parent complaint lands in your inbox and makes you feel personally and professionally vulnerable. Navigating this complex role is hard to do on your own. We should all be able to access funded professional guidance when needed. Professional supervision isn't counselling or coaching or therapy. It's a space to explore who you are, how you are, reconnect with your purpose and mitigate the risks of future burnout. In England alone, there are almost 70,000 senior leaders. The DofE are currently funding 6 hours of supervision for 800 heads, deputies and assistant heads in England and Wales over the next 3 years via the amazing Education Support Network. But that's only access for 265 leaders per year. That is less than 0.4%. It's not enough. Colleagues, we're not losing sleep over the curriculum, and we're not seeing our doctors because of the assembly rota. Our roles and expectations as leaders have changed significantly. A slow creep of additional responsibilities coupled with a punitive and out-of-touch inspection regime has increased the risks to our health and the retention of brilliant leaders. As a result, we've seen the collapse of aspiration for leadership. In our most recent wellbeing survey, only 20% of leaders who are not head teachers aspire to headship. Now we're losing future leaders. Sadly, we have all witnessed the collapse of essential social services, many of which have defaulted to schools. Social workers, therapists, law enforcement, counsellors, mental health workers and firefighters all have an entitlement to regular professional supervision. We're doing all of those roles daily. Must be why we can get a blue light card now. By ensuring all leaders have access to regular funded professional supervision, we add in a protective layer to keep us from harm and risk. More risk than protection leads to tragedy, something we are all sadly aware of. I'm conscious that this motion could be seen to be enabling the problem, accepting these additional responsibilities and strains on our working conditions, but we know these are unlikely to change overnight, and we haven't got time. Leadership attrition is spiralling. We need to keep good leaders long-term and make headship viable to deputy and assistant head teachers. Secretary of State, you've said you're listening. Now is the time to invest in fully funded professional supervision for all leaders, which will help restore professional agency and recognise teachers as the trusted professionals so our children and communities keep the school leaders they deserve. Conference, I move.
Hello everyone, I'm Mel Collins, Coventry Branch and National Executive. I would like to second this motion. DSLs are already entitled to professional supervision, but other leaders are not. It's a postcode lottery if your local authority provides some funding for this. In the main part, it falls on schools to do it in-house, where you may be assigned a colleague or governor who's not qualified or experienced to provide and complete this. Not a professional supervisor, skilled in supporting you to navigate the highs and lows in our very stress-filled jobs. Some schools fund it for leaders, but this adds additional pressures on funding that are already tight with budgets. So this motion requests fully funded professional supervision for all leaders. Please support this motion.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Nick Whitehouse, Birmingham Branch. I support this motion, so it's a bit tricky. I'm leaving headship in a couple of weeks' time, or a few weeks' time, a crisis that has robbed me of the fulfilment of helping children, families and colleagues in any sustainable way. It's seriously impacted my mental and physical health, and I've relied on medication to do my job. Shouldn't be that way. I know that routine supervision for me over a course of years would have helped me massively and refilled my cup. I want to do that for others so less people end up in my position, so that's what I'm going to do next year. Join the mission, support this motion.
And there are no more speakers at the mic, so we'll move to the vote. No, we won't. National Executive wish to take a view on this. Thank you.
Conference, National Executive would like to express their particular support for this motion. The Deputy and Assistant Head Sector Council have proposed a valuable motion which will support NHT's fight to address the recruitment and retention crisis. Government must recognise the impossible pressures school leaders face and offer a fully funded system that supports the mental health and well-being of school leaders.
Thank you. Okay, all in favour? Thank you. All against? So that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Moving on to motion 19. is a lead and lettered motion. So 19A, thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name's Jennifer Clark. I'm part of the Derbyshire branch. I'm their president. And this is Sam. Go for it, Sam.
Sam Williams, South West Region.
And we're coming to you this afternoon with this motion today because we all know firsthand that the current approach to targeted support for our children is not working. We see the impact every day. Children with SEND waiting years for assessments, disadvantaged pupils coming to school hungry, dysregulated and already behind. Families in crisis with nowhere to turn until it's too late. Schools are becoming the last safety net because every other one has fallen through. Daily, schools see the crisis for our children unfolding. We are firefighting, we're not teaching, and we're exhausted. EY teachers and practitioners are increasingly forced to shoulder social care and health responsibilities beyond their role due to overwhelmed services and prolonged waiting lists. We need bold, systematic change that starts with where it matters most, in early childhood. Before school even begins, we must be supporting children and families through accessible, high-quality early years services. This means funded children's centres in every community, especially for those where the need is greatest. It also means seamless access to parenting support, speech and language therapy, mental health services and early SEND and identification, regardless of postcode. When early help works, it prevents crisis. It keeps children in families, in school and out of systems that are overwhelmed. And this change is not hypothetical. National reforms in children's social care are already underway through the government's Keeping Children Safe, Helping Families Thrive strategy. But here's the issue. Education does not yet have a fair seat at this table. These decisions are being made without properly involving the sector that sees children every single day. If we want to help families to thrive, education must be at the heart of the vision, not at the sidelines. We cannot allow this to continue. A joined-up system must include schools and early years providers as key partners, not just as delivery arms. Imagine a system where a child needs a speech therapist, a social worker, or a safe space isn't a battle for parents and educators to fight, but a shared responsibility with shared accountability across all key agencies and partners.
Conference. There is a paradox at the heart of our system. Hard-working professionals across all services give their best for children and families every single day. Our work is profoundly important, and our contribution to society is something we can all be proud of. Yet, as Jennifer articulated, something is not right. I see this in my own nursery school, the heartbreak caused by the removal of our Sure Start Children's Centre and integrated services, how our team, ambitious and passionate, work to fill the gaps of early help, health and family support that we miss so much. Across our 4 nations, despite our best efforts, too many children, often the most vulnerable, fall through the cracks. Today, we stand at a turning point. The case for system-wide integration of services across all phases is unequivocal. There is no way forward when we work in isolation, when success relies on the passion and dedication of individuals, where the best outcomes occur despite the system, rather than enabled by it. The vision is clear. We must lead fearlessly and with ambition to seize the opportunity, building a better system of children's services with education at the heart. We must learn from and build on the models which are working now across our 4 nations. We must build a strong national framework which learns from our own legacy framework, Every Child Matters, and global best practice, and ensure that this time it is resistant and resilient to the whims of political cycles. We must never again be set back a decade or more on the whim of a Secretary of State. Conference, I second this motion.
Thank you. 19B, thank you.
Good afternoon, Alistair Black, Coventry City season ticket holder, but still at conference, and West Midlands Regional Secretary. Let me start by saying that I'm fully in favour of breakfast clubs, but just not the way that they're being rolled out by the government. Lots of schools run them successfully in many different ways. At my school, Greg's fund it, and it's targeted at children and families who we feel will benefit from it. About half my children are eligible for pupil premium, and 40 of them currently go to breakfast club. They're in a dining room and they're looked after by 5 staff. Coventry branch asked me to propose this motion after a member who signed up for her school to be one of the 750 pilot schools decided to withdraw. Issues included, but not restricted to, where will all the children go? Who will look after them, particularly the youngest children and those with significant needs? How will we fund it? The government's suggested payments will not cover it. How long will it take to feed everyone? What about cups of tea? Where will everything get cleaned up? Where will we store all the food and equipment? What will happen in schools who currently rely on the income they get from breakfast clubs? Even if funding was provided in order to build a second school hall and extend our school kitchens, this would still not be the solution, as we would still have staffing issues, and it would have a significant impact on the school day. Schools are places of education, not creches or childminders. Conference, I move.
Thank you both. You're coming to the mic? Yeah.
Tim Newbold, Secretary of Wrexham Branch. We've had free school meals in Wales for a number of years. It's a brilliant idea. We run it in our school. There are issues that I think members need to be aware of. For example, if your staff don't turn up on a particular day, who gets the phone call? Who deals with that? Who deals with the discipline issues that happen in breakfast clubs? It all comes back to the heads, and it does increase the workload. So, yeah, I think before it's introduced in England, it does need the questions answering that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you. And there are no more speakers at the mic, but National Executive did want to express a view on this motion.
Conference, National Executive would like to express their particular support for this motion. This is an important motion that recognises our education system cannot exist in isolation. We strongly support working to rebuild a system that has deteriorated across years of funding cuts, and National Executive strongly embrace the opportunity to work in partnership to be a part of that change.
Thank you. And we move to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. All against? That is unanimously carried. Thank you. Motion 21, please. 20. I've turned too many pages. I'm keen to catch up. 20.
Thought I got away with it there. My name is Joanne White. I am the Vice President in Northern Ireland, chair of a special branch and a first-time delegate here. So, in Northern Ireland, special schools have a partially delegated budget. Now, what I'm about to talk about isn't about whether we should get all the money or not. It's not a budgetary issue. But it's part of a scheme where the Education Authority hold our staffing budget, and they decide what staff we can have in our schools. And they only have two choices: teachers or classroom assistants. Now, I've been a principal for 21 years now in special education, and through our budget, we cannot employ any medical staff, any therapists, counsellors, social workers, homeschool link officers, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, etc., etc., etc. Any of the specialist provisions who could make the educational experience of our children more successful, physically, mentally, or emotionally, we cannot employ in our schools. Now that there are more specialist classes in mainstream schools, this stranglehold on staffing structures within our special education denies the teaching profession and school leaders the opportunity to deploy professional, specialist, skilled staff to best meet the needs of our children. Conference, I call on you to lobby for the removal of restrictions that prevent workforce flexibility in our schools. Many schools are unable to deploy staff efficiently and effectively based on the needs of the children they educate. The need for on-site multidisciplinary teams grow as children require immediate access to these services. Conference, I move.
Colleagues, Jackie Bartley, President of Northern Ireland, National Exec. We want our government to trust school leaders so that we know where the money is going, and the money is going front and centre for the children, because that's why we're there, to serve the needs of our children every single day. And we as school leaders need to be trusted to do that. I second this motion.
And there are no speakers at the microphone, so we move to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. All against? Thank you. That is unanimously carried. Motion 21.
Andy Ramanandi, Gateshead Branch, first time speaker. And I'm a Newcastle fan, so first time trophy winner as well. On the 20th of March, 5 years ago, I, like many school leaders in this room, took a final proofread of the letter that I was about to send the families in my school community. It was a letter the like of which I'd never written before. The previous night, the Prime Minister had announced the partial closure of schools. That morning, guidance about key workers was published. As a school leader and a parent, I felt uncertain, anxious, and a little fearful about what was to come. And I knew that if I felt that way, then so would my staff, our parents, and my pupils. It was important to me that this initial letter, and there would be many more to come, provided some clarity where there was uncertainty, calmed anxiety, and eased those fears. But I doubted it would. What happened over the following 18 or so months was unprecedented and was impactful in so many different ways. 5 years later, it is evident in Gateshead that many of our pupils were impacted by their experiences at that time, that many still are, and that those experiences, for some, were traumatic. Year 10 pupils who had virtually no transition from Year 6 to Year 7, moving from one school to another, from one bubble to another. One of my Year 1 pupils was born the day the Prime Minister announced partial school closures. What was the lived experience of her cohort and those in the cohorts around her at that time? Reception children, not yet born, but carried by mothers who were possibly watching nightly updates on current mortality rates. Children in our Year 2 and Year 3 classes who were toddlers, forbidden from seeing wider family members. Did they understand what the clapping on Thursday evenings meant? It's hard to model speech with a mask on, but all too easy to pick up fear when over 80% of communication is non-verbal. Many of my Year 6 pupils missed much of Key Stage 1. It's hard to be socialised in relative isolation, and it was hard to pick up the building blocks of English and maths remotely. They sit the first of their SATs in 9 days' time. There are many more examples. You will have many more examples. COVID happened. Our response to COVID happened. The impact of that response is still being felt. We need to do something about it. Gateshead are supporting their schools to becoming trauma-informed through their Belong Gateshead pilot. My school's been really fortunate to be one of 8 to undertake trauma-informed UK training. It's been both informative and transformative. Our trainer believes we have a school population, many of which are disavowed of safety. Disavowed of safety. We have 3 school rules: ready, respectful, safe. But how can we expect children to be ready when they don't feel psychologically safe, but they don't know they don't feel psychologically safe? This training is helping us to understand our pupils and is helping us to help them. There is ambition in this initiative. We should note the success of a similar pilot in Middlesbrough called Proclaim. It began as an initiative to target care experienced children, but was quickly extended, ensuring all staff had training to provide trauma-informed practice. These are pockets of good practice, and there will be others. Trauma-informed practice should not be yet another initiative subject to a postcode lottery. We need to fully understand how children's social and emotional development has been affected by the country's response to COVID. We must ensure that every school has access to trauma-informed training, so that every school is equipped to support children affected by trauma. That will mean every school is trauma responsive. Conference, I propose.
Hi, Mustafa Malik, Gateshead branch, also first-time speaker. Just really to prove how united we are in Gateshead on this matter, unlike Andy, the Newcastle supporter, I come from a family of Mackham Sunderland supporters who have definitely not seen a trophy win in the last few years, and I still would like to second this motion.
Thank you. Speaker at the mic here.
Hi, Julia Rodwell, Middlesbrough Secretary. I'd like to support this motion because Middlesbrough were recently mentioned there, and I think we've gone beyond the other authorities. We started 3 years ago with a cohort of 12 schools, and then that was repeated the following year and again, so that all our ambition is by the end of next year, all of our schools will be, all of our staff will be trained on trauma-informed training approaches for our children. We've seen a massive impact in our school. I thought our school was very nurturing and caring, and I always felt like we wrapped our arms around our children. But what trauma-informed practice and training has done for our staff has taught our teachers, our sports staff, our reception staff, our midday assistants, everybody about the importance of brain development of children and how the impact of the trauma that they've experienced is demonstrated in their behaviour and how we as professionals can support them. And so because I've seen the day-to-day impact of this programme, I support this motion.
Thank you.
Barbara Middleton, North Tyneside branch. I kept quiet during the Ofsted section, which was actually unlike me. So I was Ofsteded November 23, an experience never to be forgotten. And the current year 3 at that time were the most impacted by COVID. And despite the fact that we're in a very challenging context, and we have above national outcomes at the end of year 6, and we had a very able cohort that year, and we could show positive progress from Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 2 that we were asked to show, because I was honest about the fact that our year 3 children were still not where they needed to be with reading, and we had some children who were behind, despite the fact that I could explain what we'd been doing about that consistently as they travelled through school. The lead inspector said we were not doing enough, and that those children were basically, we weren't catching them up quickly enough in reading, and that was a development point.
Thank you.
Hi, Rachel Kay, Blackburn and Darwen branch. Delighted to say that Blackburn and Darwen are moving towards almost a fully trauma-informed authority, with the exception, to a certain extent, of the SEND population. And just on their behalf as well, which is why I formally proposed the motion, acknowledged motion, is that we've seen an overwhelming increase in the SEND population of children identified with speech language communication autistic spectrum disorder, which I am absolutely convinced is a legacy of the lack of that appropriate provision in those early years. So the speech language communication, direct result of not having the appropriate reinforcement. So on behalf of the SEND sector.
Thank you.
Keith Wright, Lancashire branch. 2 years ago, colleagues, you might remember me talking about medication for my own mental health and well-being. And then a year ago, I took the decision to retire early from headship. There's 2 waves, isn't there, that's going through primary schools with regard to COVID. One in Key Stage 2 that was impacted at the start of it, and then now the one of the children being born. We're still experiencing these. I speak to a lot of head teachers and colleagues, and I'm humbled by the skills and the commitment of the staff to try and give the children the best opportunities possible. But trauma is not just with the children, it's with the staff that have gone through this as well. And there needs to be a real thought process about all schools having access to this, not only to support the families that are traumatised by COVID, but the staff and the scars created by it. So although I've now left headship, I've not left my commitment to work with the NHT and do what I can to make sure that everything that we need for our schools is done, because we owe it to the children, we owe it to our staff, the future heads and leaders of our schools. So I fully support this motion.
I'm sorry, due to time, I'm just going to take this one speaker. Sorry about that, thank you.
Hello, Emma Fox, Middlesbrough branch. Like Julia said, in Middlesbrough there's a process of all school staff being trauma-informed and attachment-aware. I'm a head teacher of an all-age special school, and we've been involved. And I must admit, we were a bit, we're so holistic in special, what can we learn from this? It's been excellent, that shared language, that shared understanding. So I just want to reiterate how important it is for special to be involved in this, and that any programme needs to include us. And also, linking back to the earlier talks about supervision, the programme Middlesbrough comes with supervision for school staff, and that's been really integral and key, so I fully support this motion.
Thank you. We will move to the vote now. All in favour? Thank you. All against? And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Motion 22. Thank you.
Marika Miles, Hampshire branch, National Executive, and I'm proposing on behalf of the Practice Committee. President Conference, I am a pragmatist, and I'm mindful that this post-lunch slot can be tricky for maintaining concentration and interest. Those people who know me well will know that I would love to provide you with a highly technical exposition of the legal issues around this motion, but even I can read a room sometimes. And I'm going to leave that to the excellent revised guidance for members, which will be made available to you soon. We welcome this as leaders who are frankly being bullied and browbeaten by colleagues from other services, and even shamefully from our own LAs and trusts at times. Threatened into colluding with other agencies in some cases by acting at risk, outside of lawful clinical delegation procedures, and against the best interests of often our most vulnerable and courageous children, by accepting a second-class provision for their clinical and medical needs. Before I proceed any further, I want to stop and pay tribute to the incredible children in all sorts of schools and to the equally incredible staff and leaders who support them in accessing and thriving in their education despite medical conditions which are both life-limiting and also limit their living. And this motion is about demanding the very best for them. You might be tempted to think that this is a niche issue, but it is one of the most universal to all of our members. It even affects our 10,000 plus life members, many of whom generously continue to fulfil their vocation for school leadership as governors. Governors are particularly vulnerable in this complex mesh of responsibilities, risks, and conflicting and contradictory legal frameworks which apply, and which, along with some really lamentable attitudes, are at the heart of this challenge. Supporting pupils with medical conditions at school is a legally imperfect document, to put it mildly, and only a very small proportion of it is actually statutory, 1.5 of its 29 pages. I promised you I wouldn't get into the weeds of this too far, and I won't, but if you take only a couple of things away from this speech, may I draw your attention to the fact that nowhere in this document does it state that schools have to provide medical care. It specifies the duty to make arrangements, which is a cooperative and collaborative duty with clinical commissioners. Commissioners who have an absolute legal duty to make provisions for children's health needs and who do not have the legal power to direct or commission any school to provide ongoing medical care. And further, no healthcare legislation allows for any form of delegation or commissioning which leads to an inferior provision for a patient compared to qualified clinical care. Equally, every clinician attempting to delegate a clinical procedure must personally follow a multi-step, clearly identified sequence, ensuring the delegatee's agreement, ensuring it's in the job description, evaluating capacity, risk assessing, and so on. This is because the delegator never loses the legal responsibility for that procedure. I would submit that only a handful of clinicians I've ever encountered in a 20-year career as a head teacher have fully appreciated the enormity of this onus on them, and that this is representative of healthcare colleagues. They are very lucky, because we, as a health and safety trainer once told me, are very, very bad at hurting children. Therefore, we have very limited, but believe me, very secure case law about this, which sadly few people in health teams are aware of. Anyway, that's enough detail for now. I thought we'd liven up the end of the afternoon with a game you might know called The Unbelievable Truth. The idea is to sneak past the listener a thing which is actually true in a lot of stuff which sounds completely unbelievable. Medical matters are very, very sensitive and confidential, so I'm going to work with an analogy, one which might not be quite as hilariously fantastical as I'd like it to be for some of us, but here we go. I'm now going to reenact for you the kind of conversation I hear about from members up and down the country, and which I've certainly experienced myself. So your challenge is to listen out for actual verbatim phrases which have been used to our members. If you hear one, can you shout solidarity? If it's one that's actually been said to you, then you're welcome to wave your arms and shout solidarity. Those of you who know me very well might also amuse yourselves by listening for the bits which might actually have been said by me. So I apologise to our interpreters because this could get a bit messy. Hello. Oh yes, good afternoon. My name's Colin and I'm phoning from the housing department. I need to talk to you about Sam. You see, unfortunately, Sam can't live in his house anymore, and so we've had a team meeting and discussed it with Sam's parents, and we've decided that Sam needs to sleep at school in future. What? But this is a school. It only operates during the day. Well, I know, but it's not very inclusive of you to think like that. It's just a matter of reasonable adjustment. I would hate to be talking about discrimination with your governing body. Actually, this is me. I'm rather familiar with the Equality and Human Rights Technical Guidance for Schools, and imperfect as it is, I don't feel this reflects any of the kind of scenarios described within it. Well, that's really rather academic. What we need here is an holistic view of the child rather than you narrowly focusing on their education. But this isn't a suitable place for a child to spend the night. There are no bathrooms, there's nowhere to cook a meal. This can't possibly be a suitable equivalent for a home. Well, I know, but nothing's perfect, is it? We just don't have the resources to provide homes for every child who needs one, and you should see what some people have to put up with. This doesn't sound safe. A child can't stay in school alone overnight. Who decided that was in their best interests? No, well, of course, they will need a member of staff to stay with them overnight. If it's a question of resourcing, here's a clue here, I'm told you just drop a line to the local authority and they'll increase the funding for the EHCP. I was told that 2 weeks ago. Yes, but how can I ask a member of staff to sleep overnight in school with a child? It's not in their job description. It sounds like something which is way beyond anything they'll have signed up for, not to mention the potential impact on their well-being. Well, we don't tell you how to do your job. That's the matter for you. You just need to get some of the teachers to ask a few TAs if they're happy to do it 2 weeks ago. This still doesn't sound safe. What if there's a fire or an intruder? Oh, don't worry, you'll be insured. Oh, and what if they have an accident or come to some harm? Look, if the situation gets beyond what your staff can cope with, just phone an ambulance. How many of you have phoned an ambulance recently for a school? This all sounds really risky. If this is your way of fulfilling your obligation and you've decided that trying to delegate that to me, please may I carry on 1 second? This is a suitable way of doing that, then what's your risk assessment on this? Oh, sorry, that's on you. It's not our department's policy to risk assess. I will be courteous and stop. There's so much more I could say. Colleagues, you've shouted solidarity for the last few minutes. Actions speak louder than words. Please show some by voting in favour of this motion. Conference, I move.
Thank you. I don't think anybody's got anything to add to that, unsurprisingly. Oh.
2 in a row. Emma Fox again from Middlesbrough. I just want to wholeheartedly support this. This is my biggest issue outside of funding. Week in, week out, I am guilt-tripped by health professionals, the local authority, to try and get my staff to do things that they are not qualified for, that are above and beyond their role. Just pay the TAs an honorarium and it'll be fine. Oh, well, we need to get somebody in school. Oh, yes, we will train you, but it might be, you know, later next year. It's just ridiculous. It's putting the staff at risk, it's putting the children at risk, and the local authority and the especially health professionals don't even understand what their responsibility is. So please support this motion.
Thank you.
Maria Bridget Ryan from Hampshire. Sorry about the voice, but I'd like to thank Meeks in particular because I run a very profound school for children with significant complex needs. I am constantly being asked by the local authority to train my staff. So if anybody needs a trachea done today, I'm your woman, okay? But the impact of that is continuing healthcare does not fund. The NHS in our local area does not fund. I have to train those staff on a weekend. I pay them. I can't pay them as much as the clinical supports for other children who are brought in. They're paid $12.50 an hour. The clinical supports are paid $49.50. Where is the parity for our people in that? I urge you to support this motion.
Thank you. I'll just take the 2 speakers that are already standing. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil Oldham, Blackpool Branch, first time speaker at conference. It's my pleasure to chair a very experienced group of special heads in Blackpool, and we have gone to battle with health, who have over the last few years constantly withdrawn services, particularly from special schools, mandating that we train our TA staff to do medical and clinical tasks that they won't undertake in schools. I'm talking in the region of 70 gastro feeds a day in one school. because of the complex nature of the children, overseeing complex physio programs for children who've just had 5 hours spinal surgery. They've withdrawn all services, and more of this now is coming onto schools. So this resonates really, really powerfully with the challenges that we're facing in our schools, particularly in special, and more now into mainstream with the complex needs that are coming in. So I urge you, please, to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel Kay, Blackburn and Darwin, similar to my colleague Neil. Recent personal experience that we had to make a decision with regards to DNR for a child because the nursing service wouldn't give us the device. So we actually had to go to legal during the day, and sadly the child passed away. So from the point of view of the nursing service, they are there they are there to write policies rather than advise, and as we say, it's left to the school staff to make those decisions. Put yourself in the situation of a member of staff who is paid, a support staff who is paid, as we've discussed earlier, and they are being expected to make those life-changing decisions. So I couldn't agree more to wholeheartedly support the consistency of this policy moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. We'll move to the vote now. All in favour? Thank you. All against? And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. And moving to motion 23, also a lead and lettered motion. Thank you. 23A.
Afternoon, colleagues. My name's John from Ealing Branch, part of the National Exec. Second conference, first at the podium. So I'll bring the mood down because we're going to cast your mind back to that piece of training that you do every 2 years about Prevent. And it seems a lot more relevant now than ever, especially considering what happened on Thursday. But as leaders, we serve vulnerable children and families. We care deeply about the children in our schools. Every day, we see the effects of the world beyond the school gates creeping into our classrooms. The rise of far-right extremism, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, and racism shaping the way that our children see themselves and each other. Schools should be places of learning, respect, and safety. But we're fighting against forces that undermine that. And right now, the support we need isn't there, and it isn't clear. In my previous school, in what I'm sure is a familiar story to us all, a teacher noticed a pupil becoming withdrawn. His conversations increasingly filled with troubling ideas. We eventually found out that he picked these up online. Concerned for his well-being, we made a Prevent referral, believing it would lead to immediate help, but instead, the process was slow, unclear, and left us wondering if we'd done the right thing. There was no guidance on what to do, no reassurance that this child would get the support that they needed, and that simply is not good enough. We need straightforward, practical guidance so that schools aren't left guessing. We need high-quality, targeted training that keeps up with the changing risks that our pupils face, and we need local authorities to have the funding and capacity to back schools up, to give us the support that we need. This motion is about protecting children. It's about making sure that no pupil is lost to dangerous ideologies simply because the system designed to safeguard them is failing. We cannot keep working in the dark. I urge you all to support this motion. Let's demand better from those in power. The DfE, education authorities in Wales and Northern Ireland must act, because if we're serious about keeping our children safe, then we must ensure that schools have the proper tools to do so. Thank you, Conference. I move.
Clarice, Ealing Branch. If we are to safeguard young people from the harms of radicalisation, extremism and hate, we must move beyond generic compliance and ensure that every teacher and every leader is equipped with relevant, nuanced and high-quality training that reflects the complexity of the world our pupils are navigating. This is not a tick-box exercise. It's about empowering professionals with the confidence and clarity to act early, act appropriately, and act in the best interests of young people. Prevent will only ever be as strong as the system structures and training that underpins it. Conference, I second this motion. Thank you.
And the proposer of 23B, please.
Hello, Jen Findlay, Newcastle branch, first-time speaker. My motion today is to highlight an issue which concerns all school leaders. We all need to know how to challenge misogyny in our workplace. In 2024, Unison conducted a study of school support staff, many of whom are under our care as school leaders. The results show that sexual harassment, sexist language and gender stereotyping are a major issue in schools. As a school leader, this makes me uncomfortable, and I immediately want to assume it doesn't happen in my school. But how do I know? What mechanism do we have to acknowledge and then report misogynistic behaviour? We have to protect our staff with the same safeguarding approach we protect our children with. It could happen here. As women, we are not a minority in schools. 74% of our teachers are women, and in society, we are over half of the national population. In 2025, how and why do we allow outdated misogynistic values to be voiced and shared? I'm sure you will share the view with me. As school leaders, we are confident staff do challenge stereotypical behaviours in children. But are we all confident that conversations in the staff room are without stereotypes or misogyny? I don't think so. Misogyny is so ingrained in our society that we almost don't see it. In our everyday lives in school, we've learned to ignore it, or we don't call it out, because we're labelled as negative or difficult. I am guilty of not challenging situations in the past, lacking confidence to speak up and worried of the possible repercussions. We know that to be branded difficult could have an impact on our careers. As a school leader, I have a voice. I now have the confidence to challenge in the moment. But what about the staff in our care? What are their experiences? Only by tackling misogyny and low-level sexual violence within our school staff can we effectively challenge misogynistic values in our young people. Conference calls on National Executive to identify resources that will support leaders in challenging misogyny, including resources that highlight key steps and actions an individual can take if they witness or experience misogyny in the workplace or trade union. Conference, I move.
Thank you. And conference, I'm sorry, we've reached that point where I'm going to have to stop 2-minute mic speakers. So those people who've indicated in advance, I will still call, but anybody else we haven't got time for, I apologise. So we move to the vote now. All in favour? Thank you. All against? That is unanimously carried. Thank you. Motion 24, which is also lead and lettered. So we begin with 24A. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Amanda Hume, Bolton Branch, SEND Sector Council and National Executive Member. Madam President, Conference. It is fortunate that we have such a clearly worded motion because in the absence of our very dear colleague, Rona Tutt, I have been left with little that needs to be unpacked. However, this makes the incredibly daunting prospect of attempting to speak on her behalf only slightly less daunting. I've no humorous slides and I've no witty poems, but at least given the time constraints, I'm confident that short and sweet won't make me unpopular. It is important that I'm explicit that this motion applies to inclusion in every part and at every stage of the system. The same principles apply in the early years and nurseries as in post-16 education hubs and universities, and everything in between. As described in the motion, what we mean by the word inclusion has been difficult to tie down. We use it and misuse it liberally in some settings. For example, up and down the country, the inclusion room is euphemistically used to describe a place where some children and young people are sent when they are excluded from classrooms, sometimes day after day. But that's probably another speech for another day. In February, UNESCO updated their definition of how inclusion relates to the right to education. They said, the right to education aims to ensure everyone achieves their human right to access quality education throughout life. An inclusive approach to education means that each individual's needs are taken into account and that all learners participate and achieve together. It acknowledges that all children can learn and that every child has unique characteristics, interests, abilities, and learning needs. Special focus is placed on learners who may be at risk of marginalisation, exclusion, or underachievement. Quite rightly, what it does not say is that regardless of need, children and young people need to be shoehorned into an environment which suits the majority, even with adaptations and mitigations. But we need to be alert to a growing and extremely vocal lobby within our education system who do not think this. The fact that in order to honour the unique profile of each individual child in our system and to honour in turn their right to a fulfilling and happy educational opportunity, we must retain a range of provisions and understand educational settings as existing on a continuum. This is as opposed to any sense that accessing mainstream provision must be the ultimate prize to attain at all costs. For example, we have a growing number of young people whose level of cognition recommends them to a mainstream level of academic challenge and achievement, but whose needs will never allow them to tolerate the turbulence and sensory din of a 1,000-place mainstream secondary school, or who will pay such a price by trying that their mental health is impacted for years. Equally, some toddlers and preschoolers, physical impairments and mental needs can deprive them of the opportunity to learn through play and peer interaction due to a lack of expert adult modification and highly specialised equipment and physical environments. Without specialist provision, they can miss out on fundamental building blocks at the very base of their developmental pyramid, the price for which may be paid through their educational career and indeed their adult life. The loneliest place to be is in a crowd, and for some young people, the place to flourish is where they are within a peer group and a community focused on a problem solving and learning together how to navigate the particular challenges brought by their individual impairments, in a society which still has a very long way to go in terms of the social model of disability. As the motion indicates, we therefore urge the government to be unequivocal in ensuring that whenever we talk about inclusion, we understand it as meaning the adults making every possible effort to enable children and young people to be meaningfully included in the provision which gives them a peer group, an authentic sense of belonging, and thus a sense of their rightful presence within a community in a setting which is the best fit for them. This means safeguarding a continuum of provision across our educational landscape. Conference, I move.
Rob Gasson, Cornwall Branch, and SEND and AP Sector Council. My first time speaking at conference. Again. I've had the privilege of leading special schools and pupil referral units for a quarter of a century, and in that time I've seen growing complexity among pupils and a real terms cut in funding. I know that conference believes that every child, regardless of need, deserves access to a fully inclusive, supportive and high quality education. But we cannot deliver that promise if our school staff are not equipped with the tools they need. Right now, too many teachers, support staff and leaders are being asked to meet the needs of learners with complex SEND without the training, resources or confidence to do so. And the truth is stark. The absence of national standards for SEND training has created a postcode lottery, where some staff receive high quality support and others are left to figure it out alone. That is simply not good enough. This motion calls for change. It demands that the National Executive lobby the government to take immediate action, to clarify its position on national standards for SEND training, and to set out a clear, accountable timeline. We are calling for mandatory, fully funded, high-quality SEND training for all school staff. Training that isn't a one-off inset day, but is embedded with initial teacher training and sustained through continuing professional development. We're also calling for fair funding, because no school should be financially disadvantaged in its ability to support pupils with complex needs. We need evidence-based, expert-informed programs co-created with those who understand SEND best, professionals, charities, and those with lived experience. Finally, we must challenge the lack of progress to date. We've waited long enough. SEND pupils can't wait, staff can't wait, schools can't wait. Let's stand together to ensure every pupil gets the education they deserve and every member of staff gets the training they need to make that possible. Conference, I move.
And we just have one speaker who had indicated in advance. That's James Taylor. Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Taylor, Cornwall Branch, SEND and AP Sector Council. This is my first time speaking at conference. In 1978, the Warnock report included data from a survey of new primary teachers. 58% said they felt inadequately prepared to teach children with SEND. Warnock was so concerned she dedicated an entire chapter to teacher training and predicted it would take 40 years for the system to catch up. In a recent survey of the first cohort of early career teachers, 60% of those asked said that the initial teacher training and early career framework left them feeling unprepared to teach and meet the needs of children with SEND. Here we are, 5 years on from Warnock, and nothing has changed. The government's ECF document is 43 pages long and over 9,000 words, and SEND, in direct reference to children, is mentioned just 4 times. And the new ITT ECF is no better. Warnock's recommendations for explicit teacher SEND education were ignored by Thatcher's 1981 government. And despite countless reports and research over the past 4 decades, the call for in-depth SEND-specific training at ITE and as part of ongoing CPD for all teachers been ignored by every government since. Schools do their best to fill the training gap, but we wouldn't ask colleagues to deliver first aid, teach phonics, or lead safeguarding without giving them the right training first. But the government continues to put teachers into the classroom without the depth of education and training needed to teach and support some of our most vulnerable children. This is a failure to our children and a failure to our teachers. Please support this motion.
Thank you. And before we move to the vote, National Executive wish to express a view on this motion.
Conference. National Executive would like to particularly express their support for this motion. We agree that national standards for SEND training are needed to make sure that every pupil has access to a learning environment where their needs are met and they have the chance to thrive, and that school leaders are not left to find the money to fund this out of already tightened budgets. Colleagues have already spoken today on the significant amount of issues working with a broken SEND system, where support staff face assault every day and the recruitment and retention crisis worsens. Our support staff deserve access to high-quality training and support to enable them to support our children. This motion gives us, as National Executive, a strong mandate to work with the government to feed in members' voices and expertise on this.
Thank you. And so we move to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. And all against? That is unanimously carried. Thank you. Motion 25. Thank you.
Colleagues, Graham Frost, primary sector and Cumbria branch. Colleagues have already spoken incredibly eloquently about the crisis which is facing SEND provision. It is a crisis. We know it, and a lot of our members of Parliament know it because they're reporting that their inboxes are absolutely full with the subject. They're also saying that their constituency surgeries are inundated with parents concerned about the provision for their children. And we know it, don't we? We know that, that at times when we're receiving so many parental complaints about our inability to meet special needs, whether we're in a mainstream or a special school, we know that it's absolutely in crisis, and a complex problem needs a complex solution. So this motion is calling for there to be a bit more delving into what is the current situation. Locally, you'll know what the situation is. For you, for us locally, we've got an inundated special school that used to have specialist classrooms, now only has general classrooms because it's so oversubscribed. And then in the meantime, we've got mainstream schools that are doing their best endeavours to meet children who need special support that they're not getting. So colleagues, please support this motion, and we'll task our officers to call on this government to really delve down and find some complex but very strategic solutions by first assessing how serious is this issue nationally. Colleagues, I propose this motion.
Hi, Jan Hatchell from Suffolk branch. When we talk about SEND funding, we're forever trying to justify provision costs for the children as if it's their fault that they present with additional needs. We get data from the DfE about the increasing number of children with EHCPs, and it's clearly a criticism. I'm one of the teachers that trained following Warnock in 1984. I started teaching, and there's been this constant drive to all children should be in mainstream, we need specialist schools, not we need to create the best possible provision. And actually, if it wasn't for us as leaders with our knowledge, our experience, and actually our passion, it wouldn't be there. In addition, within the Eastern region, we've been seeking to raise the agenda of SEND funding within the whole concern of school budgets. And I sit in my role as branch secretary in many JNCs and JCCs, listening to how schools cannot balance their budgets and then the subsequent redundancy consultations. I could speak at length, and yes, I can hear you all sniggering, those that know me, on what children with SEND need, regardless of where they're educated. But actually I'm here raising the issue that the DfE cannot be held to account for the allocation of SEND funding based on need if no one has a clear picture of what that need looks like. Since the change of government, a number of agreed specialist schools have been put on hold. There's no evidence that these additional places are not required, and indeed the independent sector is rapidly seeing the opportunity for growth. We need a robust review of actual numbers and agreement to adopt this information upon which to plan and provide funding accordingly. I support this motion.
Thank you. And we had one speaker who indicated in advance that they wish to speak. Rochelle Jeffrey.
It's me.
Good.
Hi, Rochelle Jeffrey, Birmingham branch. First time speaking at conference. I'm speaking today as assistant head and SENCO of our 2 form-entry primary school in inner city Birmingham. This motion resonates strongly with me and our ongoing predicament. This academic year we have 5 pupils, all with EHCPs that describe and state specialist provision. We have responded at consultation phase that we cannot meet their needs, yet they are placed with us. The local authority acknowledges they require special school. Parents want special school. The children need special school, but there are no special school places. Funding is inadequate. We have willing staff who want the best for these children, but lack the expertise and resources needed to meet their needs. This makes the role stressful, and consequently turnover is high. The children's progress is poor, and they are often highly dysregulated, hurting themselves, each other, and the adults caring for them. We do our best, but our best is not good enough. And as Senko, I feel the daily responsibility of failing them. This is not a short-term stopgap. The fight begins with getting the local authority to agree special. Next is finding a place. Both stages often require parents to go to tribunal, a process they need school to support with. Each appeal to court takes over a year. Finally, an overcapacity, overstretched special school will be forced to accept them. Inadequate specialist provision, either by placing SEND children who need special in mainstream or by underinvestment in special schools, is totally unacceptable. It is unfair on school staff, on families, but most of all on the children. They deserve better. I fully support this motion.
And the National Executive Committee also wish to make a view on this.
Conference, National Executive would like to particularly express their support for this motion. As has already been mentioned, we are working with the broken system and research is essential to identify where additional funding and support is desperately needed for both mainstream and specialist schools. We have heard countless stories of members having to squeeze every inch of space to accommodate high complex needs children, and space is running out. This is the time for government to listen to school leaders and our experiences.
Thank you. And we move to the vote. So, all those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is unanimously carried. Thank you. And moving on to motion 26.
Hello, I'm Russell Aberhall, London Borough of Havering Branch Secretary and first time speaking at conference. That's the only reason I came up here, was just for the clap. Thanks to me, ma'am. I'm also a Newcastle fan as well, so trophy winner this year. I did spend a lot of my young years in Crawley and then Brighton, went to uni in Ripon down the road, moved to London where I married my wife who came from Bath, so hopefully I've got half the room on my side before I even start. Oh, my daughter works in Birmingham, so there we go. Full disclosure before I start though, I am a head teacher at my free-form entry primary school, but I'm not the safeguarding lead. My deputy is far more organised and a far better DSL than I could be. I do have to say that because she's in the room today. But I have been a DSL before. 10 years ago, when I first became the acting head teacher, I held the role. I had one child on a SIN plan. KICSI was first delivered to us. It was an 18-page document. Now, as a school, we have over 100 of our children either on early help, SIN, CP plans, or on our vulnerability register. And these numbers increasingly seem to go up every day. KICSI is now 185 pages long. Every year we dedicate increasing amounts of inset sessions to ensuring staff completed their annual safeguarding training, read KICSI, read the relevant policies, all to ensure we are compliant. Too often, opportunities to learn from previous incidents are not used. Instead, the culture of fear leads to schools breathing a sigh of relief when staff have all completed the Google form to say they've read the many documents and watched all the videos. Safeguarding needs to be about a learning and preventative culture, not about a tick-box compliance approach. We all recognise safeguarding is of huge importance, but training should be meaningful and focus on what we can learn from previous incidents. This active learning approach that seeks to learn from and prevent future issues is what occurs in other fields such as aviation and medicine. It is the approach we need in education rather than seeking to pinpoint blame on an individual. Too often we're the last to know when a case has been closed, often hearing the news from the parents and many times only being told when we ask for an update ourselves. We find on too many occasions our early concerns are ignored or told they don't meet the threshold. Then months later, when the child is on a plan, we look back and think if only we'd been listened to and our professional opinion taken on board, this could all have been avoided. We know the families better than any other agency. Our opinion should be at the forefront of decisions made. We need an updated definition of safeguarding and a new approach that values and respects professional judgments. After this morning, my deputy did suggest I write all of this as a poem, but even ChatGPT couldn't rhyme anything with Kixie. Conference, I move.
Good afternoon. Michael Henry, Branch President, London Borough of Redbridge. My story is similar to Russell's. Like Russell, my existing DSL is infinitely more skilled and knowledgeable than I am, but she has secured a headship elsewhere. She's a deputy. So we're currently handing back the DSL role to me. Our Yorkshire colleague, Martin, introduced a mega motion number 10 with the question, inspection and accountability, where do we start? He also made a suggestion that the new Ofsted framework was written in Nando's. With our handover, my DSL and I are both asking, safeguarding, where do we start on a daily basis? We start with the Keeping Children Safe in Education document, which I don't believe originated in Nando's in 2014, but I do wonder whether each year the powers that be take it to a different restaurant, Zizzi's one year, Pizza Express the next, and each visit results in expanded waistlines and an increase to the document's page count. I'm certainly noticing what's earlier been described as a slow creep of additional responsibility in safeguarding as I take back on the role. Jokes aside, we acknowledge the importance of safeguarding guidance and policy, the many changes over the years have provided clarity, and some have been really necessary for us. However, it's expanded the definition of safeguarding, and with each iteration of the document, it's increased responsibility placed on school leaders to a level that's unmanageable for many. But we do it because we're school leaders. So colleagues, this motion calls for work with government to remove the culture of compliance, fear and blame when it comes to safeguarding and a restoration of our professional judgment. Conference, I second this motion.
And we have one speaker, Teresa O'Hara, who had indicated that she wished to speak.
Hello, Teresa O'Hara. I'm from West Midlands Coventry branch. I'm just going to give the title for what I would like to speak about, ambiguous loss and grief. Conference, there is a rising public health concern for some children and young people in your settings. Across Britain, an estimated 7 million grandchildren have been denied contact with their safe grandparents and wider family. I am one of those grandparents. I haven't seen my grandchildren for 21 months. As the former head teacher and DSL, and having served 30 years in education, I had come across estrangement situations due to safeguarding issues within a family where multi-agency involvement was in place. The child's voice was very much heard and considered. My case, along with many others, is not due to a safeguarding issue. No agencies are involved. The parents of my grandchildren, one being my daughter, decided to cut our contact with them and the children. There was no big argument. There was no falling out. There were no disagreements, just a complete shutdown. My grandchildren's voices have not been heard. I assure you there will be children in your settings who are living this painful, ambiguous loss and grief, as are their grandparents. In the UK, children have no legal rights to see their grandparents or their wider family. This makes it a safeguarding concern. UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, from Article 12. Every child has the right to express their views, feelings and wishes in all matters affecting them. Article 19, children should be protected from all forms of abuse and neglect by their parents. I would urge you to consider this as a safeguarding issue and to act on this. Please find the children in your settings being denied a relationship with their safe grandparents and wider family and give them a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. All against? I'm thinking they're legacy hands. All against? Unanimously agreed. Thank you. And moving on to motion 27.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well done. I think this is it, isn't it? We're nearly finished? Marvellous. Right. I'm Martin Tinsley from Windsor and Maidenhead, representing South Central. 1 in 4 women will have been the victim of domestic abuse at some point in their life. 1 in 7 men. Think about those statistics. Then have a look around this room. Then put it into your school context. Conference, I've had a very personal interest in the impact of domestic abuse in all of its forms, and what the impact it has on the children that unfortunately are exposed to it for a very long time now. A few years ago, I was given the opportunity to be part of the chairing and authoring process for a couple of domestic homicide reviews. Brought into the process by a good friend of mine who chairs and writes the HRs. Somebody's got to have a hobby, I guess. I was part of the process because he needed someone to give a perspective on how the children of the families involved could contribute to those reviews. Both the HRs had been convened because of the suicide of the victims of domestic violence. 1 female, 1 male victim, who had felt that the only way out of their respective situations was to tragically take their own lives. Obviously, I won't go into the details, but the thing that really struck me about both cases was simply this. Quite rightly, police, social care, health agencies, mental health agencies were required to contribute to the reviews, providing information as to the factors leading to both deaths and identifying processes and procedures that may in the future help to prevent such tragedies. The glaring omission from both reviews were the schools of the children. Let's face it, the head teachers and or DSLs from each school would have probably had a more holistic and complete knowledge about the families than the other agencies that were being requested to contribute, as Russell has just spoken about. The detailed information that we as school leaders are required to keep would certainly have helped in both cases to provide information that would have been helpful to those reviews. In putting this motion forward, we certainly do not wish to add to the already heavy burden placed on school leaders. But in order for such reviews, whether they be DHRs or serious case reviews, if they are to have any relevance and any lasting impact, we are suggesting that input is requested from schools, or at least invited, by chairs of the DHRs or whatever, rather than being required. Domestic abuse in all of its forms continues to blight our society, and after Thursday, we should probably expect it to get worse. If we as school leaders can help in some way towards reducing the tragic impact that it has on families, and in particular on the children, then I believe that we have a responsibility to contribute to these case reviews. I ask conference to support this motion. I move. Thank you.
Ros Sendoric, Branch Secretary of Windsor and Maidenhead, and I'm sorry that we're sort of landing you up with a sad story on the last bit of our conference. But I want to just tell you about something that happened that I was involved in, a particularly tragic case at my school. After I'd raised serious concerns to social services about a family, a young baby died. That very afternoon, I was summoned to an emergency meeting at the local hospital, together with my colleague, the head teacher from the nursery next door, who had raised the same concerns about the family. There were 26 professionals of different types in that room that afternoon. Of these, The only two who had ever met the family were my colleague and myself. Nobody else had had any dealings with them. Yet, when a subsequent serious case review was held, we weren't even invited. So this motion is not about imposing additional statutory duties on us as head teachers, but we do want to see input provided by schools to other agencies being valued, acted upon, used appropriately in their decision making. So I second this motion.
Thank you, and we move straight to the vote on that. All in favour? Thank you. All against? And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Now, you thought that was the last motion, but there is an emergency motion. If the wording of that could be put on the screen, as conference haven't seen it yet, thank you. So, General Purposes Committee have ruled that this one emergency motion is admissible for consideration at the end of the agenda. When receiving an emergency motion, General Purposes Committee considers whether a motion firstly meets the test of an ordinary motion, and then considers whether that motion is one that is both urgent, meaning it could not have been brought before the standard deadline for motions, and necessary, meaning that it is business that the committee believes needs to be addressed immediately, rather than at the conference in the following year. In this case, GPC concluded that this motion meets all the tests, and we now put it before conference, to be proposed by Sarah Hewitt-Clarkson and seconded by Deborah Walker. Thank you.
Sarah Hewitt-Clarkson, Birmingham Branch, West Midlands President, National Exec. Thank you for staying. No witty-ditty on this one. It's too sad. Our schools are inclusive spaces where diversity is embraced and celebrated, and every child and adult should feel valued and safe. We must ensure it remains this way, and it is vital that one protected characteristic is never pitted against another or used to cause harm to another. This motion is not debating the rights and wrongs of the Supreme Court judgment in Scotland. It is asking for a very serious and urgent attention from the government to provide inclusive, safe, and dignified guidance for school leaders to help navigate successfully through this new law, guidance that protects characteristics and ensures well-being is prioritised. We already know from some of our members that this is affecting them in their school. All of us already have a whole raft of laws and statutory legal duties that we know well: Public Sector Equality Duty, the Equality Act, KICSI, and so on, as well as responsibilities for every member of staff's well-being and pupil well-being. We should not have to try and interpret a new law for ourselves, yet this is what has happened. The Supreme Court judgment has had an immediate impact and implications for some of our members, thrown them into turmoil as they are faced with impossible decisions about everyday practices. It has already been divisive. Our members are expected to have immediate answers to a very complex legal situation that has been thrust upon us. This motion is asking government for clarity to help us lead our way through this, whilst ensuring everyone's dignity and safety remain intact. Our union's policy position already states that our schools must be inclusive, safe places for all, but the new law has left some unsafe and seemingly unprotected. It feels as if the load has been given to school leaders to sort their own way through it, which is unfair and leaves us all vulnerable. We chose a life of public service. We bring communities together, that is our job. Our public sector equality duty states we should eliminate discrimination and advance equality of opportunity and foster good relations between different people. This judgment has made this an impossible ask for some members. We need urgent, non-divisive, sensitive, inclusive guidance so that we can ensure our schools and members know what the law means to them and, above all, safeguard and protect the well-being of all staff and children. This motion came about after our Women's Network meeting on Tuesday night, and a great example of how our union is working. There is no excuse for abuse. We must have urgent support from the government so that we can make this true for everyone. Conference, I move.
Afternoon, Conference. I'm seconding this motion for many reasons, but I'll outline the key one. I think I'm fairly typical of our amazing profession. I can make sense of poor policies. I can survive Ofsted just. I can navigate governance sometimes, and I can usually manage parents. Occasionally, I rely on the DFE to guide me through some tricky territory. This ruling has many implications, many of which concern me and worry me. But I don't even know what I don't know. I have so many unknowns that I'm very worried. The DFE's job should be to anticipate the impact on us as leaders, on our organisations, and act with urgency to protect us from the myriad of consequences of this ruling. Conference, I second this motion.
Thank you. So I have one indicated speaker to come to the mic. That is Carrie Anson. Carrie was the person who had put in another emergency motion that was similar. So in order to conduct the efficient business of conference, we've encouraged the compositing of the two motions. So, Carrie.
Thank you. Carrie Anson, Birmingham. So Vivian Jenner Wilson is Musk's daughter, and she describes him as cold, quick to anger, uncaring, and narcissistic. He described her as figuratively dead to him. If we're talking about death, in the 2020 ruling, the impact of the NHS for trans death numbers, there was an increase. Instead of 1 in 7 years, it increased to 16 in less than 3 years. If we look at the results of this week, 23 councils, Reform gained 677 seats. And in June last year, Nigel, in his manifesto, said he would ban transgender ideology. So I want to read to you a poem, and I'm reading it on behalf of the trans community. In shadows cast from calls so wide, I walk as me, my truth inside. Though born in a form they didn't choose, in me the spirit shines, no excuse. I'm Jamie, not the name you knew, a heartbeat strong, a soul so true. With every step I want to say, please see me clear, don't look away. In whispers dark the pain does dwell, for lives once bright, a story to tell. Or teens like me, whose light has dimmed, gone too soon for some, their voices trimmed. Trans and non-binary lives matter, so hear our plea. We're more than labels, we just want to be free. Use my pronouns, make it right. In every class, let's end this fight. In bathrooms built, let kindness bloom, for every child deserves a room. So NAHT, please take a stand. Lend us your heart, and together we can make a fresh start. Open your doors wide and make space for all. In classrooms, halls, let love stand tall. See our true selves, let us belong. With your support, we can be strong. And I dedicate this to individuals in the room who are absolutely fantastic parents to children who are trans.
Thank you, colleagues. Due to time constraints, we are continuing to go straight to the vote. Thank you. As I explained, there were two emergency motions put forward that were similar. We've composited them. because that person had also put in a similar emergency motion, and the two were combined together. I'm sorry, conference. I had already called a hard deadline. We are at time. I believe I've explained. I believe I've explained the situation. Thank you, colleagues. Oh. Okay. Thank you, conference. We do have a hard deadline, which we have slightly passed, but if anybody wishes to speak against the motion, we will hear that at the 2-minute mic. No? Okay. In which case we will move to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. All against? Thank you. That is unanimously carried. Now, I am going to bang the gavel again to officially close the debate. Though I'm guessing some of you might have debates later on in the evening. Thank you, conference. This has been, as I said yesterday evening when Angie and myself came around the regional dinners, hasn't it been lively? Which is excellent. It is exactly what we want. It is entirely right that we can't predict how debates are going to go. And I do genuinely thank everybody for their participation. It's been truly an honour and a privilege to chair this conference. It has been challenging, but it should be, and that's part of the job. Thank you for that. So, I've got lots of thank yous to give now. We will all need to leave the hall promptly at the end of all the thank yous to ensure that there's time to set up for the gala dinner. So this is why we were having a hard finish. So at the end of all of this, if you make your way to Studio 2, there will be a final opportunity to tour the exhibition and to attend a post-conference sponsors drinks reception, where the winners of the prizes donated by our sponsors and exhibitors will be announced. I can, however, announce now that the winner of the exhibitor trail is Donna Brass. So Donna, you have won a £250 NAHT extras voucher. Nice. You can go and collect that from the NAHT stand in the exhibition hall. And also at the end of this session, for Life members, there is an opportunity to attend a Life members update with Andy Mellor, Life members representative on National Executive. This will be in the NAHT Theatre in Studio 2. And this evening, before the gala dinner begins, there will be a drinks reception from 7 o'clock in the Queen's Suite. They set up the glasses at lunchtime, so they're very prepared for that. And we will move into Studio 1 for the dinner itself, so that's in here at 8 o'clock. Please note that the bar is cashless at the gala dinner, although if delegates wish to contribute to a tip for the hospitality staff at the conference centre tonight, please do bring cash for that. So thanks again to all of you for your very enthusiastic participation of conference. I absolutely love coming to conference. I've been coming here for a number of years now, and it does just get bigger and better every year. So thank you to you. And I want to give you a round of applause. I hope you join in. I'd also like to thank all of the National Executive Committee members who've retired or resigned since the previous conference. Many valued colleagues who've contributed over their time on National Executive, very valued members, and it's quite a long list. It's Dawn Kimpton, John Colleen, Julie Kelly, Keith Wright, Michelle Sheehy, Patrick Foley, Paul Gosling, Stuart Beck, Roger Blackburn, and Hilary Goldsmith. Thank you to them. And thank you to my fellow officers and members of National Executive who have ably supported conference and me during this week. I would also like to take this opportunity to announce that our next Vice President, so as has been mentioned at some point during this conference, on the 31st of August, Simon Kidwell will drop off the end of the table. It's a horrible expression, but we keep using it. And pushing him along at the other end will be our Greater London Region colleague, Dave Woods. Congratulations to Dave. Conference, you've heard Dave speak a few times over the last couple of days. He's the chair of our international committee and is going to be a real asset to the national officer team. I'd also like to thank all the sponsors and conference guests for attending and participating in conference. Thank you to my presidential aide, Amanda Hume, for making sure... She is amazing, she deserves that. For making sure that I have been in the right place at the right time and for her unfailing support in every step of conference. She really does go above and beyond and always with a smile. She is brilliant. Thank you to the Yorkshire regional officials who've helped steward and marshal the event. Excellent job, thank you. And thank you to the staff of the Harrogate Convention Centre who have supported us over this event. Thank you to our excellent AV team for their support with all the AV requirements. And last but not least, thank you to the NAHT staff. There are a lot of staff here and there are quite a lot of staff who are not here as well, but they are all brilliant and all do an absolutely fabulous job. And just quietly, you might have noticed them sort of scurrying around in the background somewhere and sending messages and doing all sorts of amazing things. They are absolutely brilliant. And the amount of work that goes into organising this conference before we get here is phenomenal. But I do also want to draw to everybody's attention an incredibly special person who's disappeared from the table. Probably done that on purpose. Magnus Gorham. With a... Aha! Absolute fount of all knowledge with things democracy and governance. Without him, this event would not take place at all. And this is his 25th annual conference for NAHT. Thank you, Magnus. Truly amazing. I would also like to thank our British Sign Language interpreters who've done a fabulous job. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just leaning over because I've just looked at Rachel's file, because this file keeps us all in line, because it's quite a bit of a daunting job sitting up here. And I've just saw my name, that Angie provides gracious thanks to the President for conducting conference. But someone forgot to tell me that. So, cheers, Magnus. I would like to extend my thanks, your thanks, to Rachel for keeping us on track, on time. We even drove her to tears at points, but they were happy tears, they really were. But thank you very much, Rachel. Well done.
So, I formally declare this conference closed. I know. Look forward to seeing you all next year in Belfast.